Hey, I'm FriendlyBaron and welcome back to episode 4 of my series Casual vs Speedrun in GTA 5. We're hopping right into this one. Notice first of all that the speedrun is already slightly ahead a moment. The cutscene showing Lester's building played for a bit longer for the casual because they weren't at the right time of day to start the mission due to playing slower earlier. The mission now is the jewel store heist, and we're watching both views do the loud option. We'll look at a comparison between the two options at the end of the video. The speedrun honks the horn as they get into the van as it causes Michael and the two crew members to get in faster. If you are new to this series, just a quick note that this casual player is not meant to be a single player, but rather an approximation of what the average player of this game summed up would look like, not great but not terrible either. A refresher for returning viewers is that we've just finished the heist setup mission Carbine Rifles, which leads directly into this heist. The drive over to the jewel store in the vans is basically the same as we've seen many times on this road. The casual doesn't have too much trouble, but the speedrun is taking a slightly better route, along with curb boosting and brake boosting as much as possible. If you don't know what those are, I now have a video out explaining them which you can watch to get up to speed on what that means. The arrival to the jewel store is an easy wide hitbox, but the speedrun moves very fast once inside. We shoot all cases open with the gun to avoid the slightly longer animation of smashing the glass that would have to play otherwise. The casual will take their time to grab as much money as possible, but for the speedrun, we need to only hit the minimum amount of $3.3 million or so before we are ready to leave. In fact, the NPCs will grab the last of the cash just as we reach the door, instantly putting the speedrunner to the motorcycles outside. While the game makes you feel a little rushed with a 90-second time limit to get in and out, the speedrun does it in just 24 seconds compared to the casual taking 55 inside the store, over double the speedrun's time. Once on the bikes, the speedrun makes an immediate tighter left turn to improve routing. Remember that in the heist setup, the casual took the default options and now has the off-road bikes, but the speedrun took the technically worse driver option and has sports bikes. The game intends that you spend lots of time underground in the dirt-filled sewers here, so the off-road scramblers really help for that, and the sports bikes are supposed to punish you, with tons of voice lines indicating as such. However, instead of going underground, the speedrun will stay on surface streets vaguely following the sewer's path. This means that we make use of the speed from the sports bikes constantly, and rubber band the AI down below us at their max speed. As always, we have to stay within a certain distance of the AI or we'll fail, hence why the wheelies will stop once we're back on the freeway in order to not get too far away from them. The casual player is now in the dirt doing the driving that the speedrun skips. The twists and turns down underground eat up a lot of speed, so the route the speedrun takes is basically a smoothed out version of what is below. As the speedrun jumps off the bridge to get down into the sewer, they are careful to land slightly on the back tire. Landing any other way can and often will cause you to fall off the bike and fail the mission. This mission is a pain to fail as it resets you all the way back to the jewel store, and a dumb fall or going too fast and losing the AI bikes can happen quite easily to new runners. The speedrun did that motorcycling in 1.5 minutes while the casual took 2 minutes. The speedrun drives backwards into the tunnel and makes the camera get a little wonky due to the extra distance it has to travel in order to trigger the next part of the mission as Michael driving the truck. The speedrun doesn't want to lose speed by driving into the water, so we just stay on the left side of the river the whole time. And no cops spawn in front of us, since we are so far ahead of them due to the motorcycle section. In fact, the speedrun has to slow down again by lifting off the gas for about 2 seconds in order to not go too far away from the motorcyclists. As the speedrun approaches the end of this river, they drive up onto the side of the embankment in order to avoid a hitbox that will slow the truck down gradually instead of the instant stop on the yellow checkpoint that we want. Sadly, we cannot curb boost the truck a bunch here for more speed, as any faster would be too fast for the motorcycles sadly. Once the bikes are in the truck, the casual is going to, as always, follow the yellow suggested path to the end of the mission. The speedrun instead hops up onto the road quicker and takes a slightly more direct route to the end. The rocks on the slope and the traffic here can cause some issues, but you learn to read it in the patterns pretty fast. The traffic during the motorcycling section before this mission is the purely scripted traffic as discussed in previous episodes, but the traffic at the end here is semi-scripted. There will always generally be mostly trucks and a few small cars blocking these lanes, but it's slightly different every time. The speedrun smoothly pulls into the garage and the casual, well, hey, the casual doesn't crash at least. That's the end of the jewel store heist, with the speedrun taking about a minute and a half less to finish, mainly due to the much quicker execution inside the jewel store and the fancy routing during the motorcycle section. At the end of the episode, we'll come back to this mission and compare the two different setup options we could have chosen earlier. For now though, we'll head on to Mission 14, the long stretch. The mission starts with a long cutscene of Frank on the phone in the strip club, then a forced slow walk back out to Frank's car. The speedrun will use the take cover mechanic to cover on the pillar, then run to the car just a bit quicker. Skipping forced walking animations is something we always look to do. The drive back to Franklin's house is very short, and our casual player even sees the same shortcut the speedrun takes. But the speedrun again squeezes between the fence to immediately begin the mission cutscene. I'd like to add that that fence is probably the strongest picket fence ever made. I've ran into it so many times when I was first learning the game. The game intends that you take Stretch's car as seen by the casual coming up. However, it's really slow, so the speedrun will instead run over the Franklin's car, and the NPCs will also get into it with you. This does lose a bit of time now, as the casual almost catches back up with the speedrun, but the time will be massively made up during the drive. Heading over to the gun store, the speedrun will come to a stop in front of a location that will allow us to get Stretch and Lamar back in quickly after we come out. Once inside, we take cover again instead of slowly walking up to the counter, hit the key to interact, and then walk away. There's a delay until the menu for the gun store is actually entered, so we can begin to walk backwards towards the door until it opens up. After doing the shopping, the speedrun only has to move a little bit more to get outside, then runs a bit farther like was done in Repossession in order to force the AI to continue running all the way into the car themselves. Driving over to the recycling center to begin the deal, the speedrun will cut left over the dirt twice. Once to skip the left-hand earth intersection, then again to jump directly up to the door we need to use to enter the building. The casual takes the normal longer routes and pulls into the parking lot without getting a ton of air. Heading inside, the speedrun will enter first person as it lets us run up the steps much faster, Olympic pace probably. Once entering the shootout, the speed is good but not always important. Lots of this mission's on-foot section is waiting for Stretch and Lamar to catch up, so it can be played as a little bit safer as the extra risk from running in guns and blazing fully isn't really needed for the speedrun. The speedrun attempts to use just the right amount of shotgun shells to avoid having to reload during the shots. The next part of the shootout is exactly 8 guys, so they can all be gotten without a reload. The casual doesn't have too much trouble in this shootout. Taking it slow and using the controller aim on nearby enemies with a shotgun really helps them along. After killing the guys in the hallway, the speedrun picks up an assault rifle and will use that for the big room shootout. We leave one guy alive on the right as he dies in the scripted explosion, and can cause bugs if we kill him ourselves too early. The speedrun looks back to make sure the NPCs have caught up before continuing to the exit. Something to notice is that instead of reloading, when available the speedrun will weapon swap. This is a mechanic that's basically in all GTAs, where when you swap to a different weapon and then swap back, the original weapon will now have a full clip or magazine or whatever you want to call it. It lets us reload but at full run speed and much faster. As the speedrun heads outside, they will shoot the 2 choppers right away, but then wait at the top before continuing onwards. Another instance of waiting for the AI to catch up so they don't act weird and end up failing you or taking longer when you get too far ahead. Once we see Stretch coming up the ladder, we can continue to jump on the wall. The game intends to give you this car anyways, but by pointing our gun at the driver we can scare him off early and get in to park it just exactly where we want our allies to be, along with clearing the cops that would be chasing us right away. The casual has gotten through the shootouts and will head outside too. Nothing is too different for them up until now besides just being slower. Lamar and Stretch get in pretty quick thanks to the speedrun's early parking. Once leaving, we have a pre-planned path back to Frank's house where the mission will end, driving back through the parking lot and down into the sewer to avoid all cops on the roads. Once approaching the house, the speedrunner has to watch the roads. Usually everything is clear in this area besides a single helicopter that goes north every time. But sometimes like here, a late cop spawns and one of the various alleys can be used to avoid them. The casual has lots of trouble avoiding the cops, to eventually lose them. The walled areas on the highway make it hard to turn around in time when a cop appears in front. I'm honestly terrible at losing the cops as the casual, as I'm so used to having pre-planned routes to get away from them in the speedrun. The speedrun was open about a minute and a half ahead up until the cop chase at the end, mainly due to the better car and better routing, and slightly faster shooting. At the end of the mission, once both return to Franklin's house, the gap will be doubled to just over 3 minutes due to the casual sucking at evading the police, which is expected. That's the end of the mission, the long stretch, and our last mission within the city for a while. Let's get into mission 15, Mr. Phillips. Both players will switch to Michael here since the next mission starts at Michael's house, so it's logical he'd be there. This switch is also the reason we took Amanda's call earlier on casing the jewel store, as if we hadn't done that, there'd be a very high chance that we spawn on the other side of the city as Michael. The speedrun will drive straight into the door in order to grab the cutscene right away, and that sends us up north to meet Trevor. As we run to get into his truck, the speedrun will pull forward slightly, not only to get Wade and Ron into the truck quicker, but also prevent Wade from walking into the truck and stumbling, as can be seen on the casual side. As the casual takes the expected suggested roads to the next part of the mission, the speedrun will take a shortcut by staying left next to the lake in order to cut time off the drive. Cutting over the dirt doesn't always work like this, as sometimes you slow down too much due to the traction loss compared to the amount of distance saved. If you haven't noticed yet, this episode is using slightly different music. I'm trying out using the in-game soundtrack from GTA 5 and using the music for the specific missions we are watching, since they tend to be pretty good background music anyways, and fit the mission just that extra little bit. As well, I apologize for the length it took for this episode to be released, and any stutters that the recordings may have. My computer is old and on its last legs, but I have a new computer now that is a huge upgrade to my current one that I should have set up and ready to go within a week, thanks to the generosity of one of my Twitch viewers. Real quick, the speedrun arrives at the farm and engages the bikers. Then, as we exit, we take a slight shortcut through the fences. Both players kill the bikers, as via in-game voice lines they can be killed and only the van needs to be followed. The drive here is a pretty simple chase. The speedrun does take the shortcuts, though because of the thicker, deeper dirt used in them, they don't actually save crazy amounts of time. My goal is to start making 2 videos a week, and I'll say that I'm actually getting quite close to be able to do Twitch and YouTube full time, which is just awesome. And if you haven't subbed on YouTube, but have been watching my series off my recommended or something, subscribing on YouTube really helps me out by being able to make more of these videos now and in the future. If this is your first episode, a link to a playlist of the whole Casual vs. Speedrun series is in the description. Go give it a watch and see if it's worth your sub, you know? As we approach this jump, the speedrun will hold a weapon out in order to skip the slowed down stunt jump animation and just continue on as normal. This tech is used on all of the scripted stunt jumps during the run besides the first one back on repossession because we don't have a gun yet, and is also heavily used during my speedrun of the all stunt jumps category. The rest of the drive is uneventful besides some brake boost on the humped bridges for the speedrun. When driving up north like this, staying on the paved road when available as much as possible is the main way to save time, as hitting the dirt slows you down about 75%. As the speedrun arrives to the trailer park, they will slow down and lightly crash into this building to come to a stop and get out. Trevor's best weapon here is a shotgun, so he must again hit every shot in order to get the bullet usage right and not accidentally reload during the fight. The order we will kill these guys in is 95% precise in order to get the kills needed to not spawn extra enemy waves. The speedrun shoots the gas tank next to the house just as the 2 motorcycles pass by for a 4-in-1 kill, as well as swiveling left to shoot the guy in the building, which cancels the slow-mo from the explosion animation. After killing the guys in the center, the mission switches to telling you to return to the truck. By killing ourselves as Trevor here, we can respawn and be back in the truck right away. Sometimes the checkpoints allow for a suicide for a slightly faster teleport, especially when it skips on foot running. Sadly for a casual player, he gets a bit too Rambo for his skill level and dies to a close-range shotgun blast, and has to try again, this time going a bit slow and paying attention to the tooltip explaining how Trevor's special ability can be used to do more damage and make Trevor invincible. The speedrun often shies away from Trevor's ability, as it also slows down time, so minimal usage of it is preferred except when needed to stay safe around tons of enemies. Approaching the next mission section to confront the rival drug dealer, the speedrun makes sure the drive fast on the paved road is normal, with small on-dirt shortcuts in some places. After we push the trailer into the water, we have an option to kill or let the guy live. The speedrun kills him because it spooks Ron and makes him run back into the truck faster. An NPC's life is taken for a half second of time save. That's the reality of GTA 5 speedrunning. At this point, both views drive back to Trevor's house, and besides a single cut through some empty lots, it's the same route for both. And after a short cutscene showing off Trevor's home, that's the end of the mission, Mr. Phillips. Thanks to better driving, a highly optimized shootout, and faster decision making, the speedrunner finishes 3 minutes ahead of the casual, though that may be close to only 2 minutes faster if the casual is to play slower and not die in the shootout. That's all of the missions we'll be looking at this time, but now we're going to compare the 2 heist options we could have picked. The loud option that the speedrun did is on the right, and the smart option that the speedrun doesn't choose is on the left. I'll be explaining why we don't choose the smart option here as it is much slower. Both options you have to go to retrieve a vehicle. The smart option needs to head to the docks to get a pest company's van, while the speedrun only needs to travel a block or two in order to get to the location where they can get the truck carrying the automatic weapons. Basically, the setup options for the smart way take much longer due to the distances needed to travel. My gameplay with the smart option isn't great, but that's because we don't route it often, so it's not going to be as polished as the speedrun is, but just the distances needed and assuming perfect gameplay, it's still much longer. Stealing the van is relatively easier for the smart option with no fight needed unless you're dumb and come to a stop like I did, and you can even get the van without getting the cops, in general. So in theory, you could finish the Bugstar van mission in almost the same time it takes as the setup for the loud option. The problem is, the smart option has a second setup mission, where you need to go steal gas grenades from a truck off the freeway, and going up to get that van and then drive it all the way back just takes so much time that there's no way it could be faster. You can also steal the gas from the van by breaking open the back and then using your own car, but that gets you the cops and is likely slower than just getting into the van as shown. Either way, it doesn't really matter, as it's worse option for the speedrun to pick, thanks to the long distances. People often ask me to do an opposite heist run or any gold objectives run on my stream, which I generally decline. Doing the slower way just isn't that fun, and the extra objective needed feel very arbitrary for me. If you missed it, I did use a cheat code to lose the cops driving the Bugstar van just to get it done after a reasonable amount of time, as if we had actually had routing for that mission. And I will be slicing in a bit of the smart options video later on just to make it play better and get a truer time to what it could be if well routed. Now looking to the actual heist mission, the drive over to the jewel store is the same, with the smart way being there first thanks to a slightly better car, but the smart option then has to climb up onto the roof and throw the smoke canister into the vent. And while the game doesn't force you all the way up as intended, this is about as far away as it can be thrown, and trying to stay on the ground and throw it fails you when you walk away from the construction entrance. Meanwhile, the loud option goes straight into the jewel store, which is where a comparison ends. Once inside the jewel store, the rest of the heist, including the motorcycle part, is the same. You can make more money from the smart option, but that's not necessary for the speedrun, as we only need the minimum amount for our purposes anyways. The bit of money made in this heist is used to buy a few weapons later on in the run, but that's all. So that's why we picked the loud option over the smart option. The longer setup mission for the smart option, plus there being two of them, along with throwing the gas grenade, make the loud choice much better for the speedrun. So after this episode, the total time played for the casual is 1 hour and 54 minutes, with the speedrun having only played for about 1 hour and 15 minutes, so just about 40 minutes of time save over that time. I would love to show a live counter of the time difference, but I'm not sure how I could do that within my editing program right now, sadly. For now, there's a link to the spreadsheet detailing all the time info in the description. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next episode as soon as I can get it out.